Welcome to our summertime road trip workshop. I'm delighted to work with Kristen, and I know those of you that are here have heard me say that I've had the privilege to work with Rebecca, two alumni that are a very special group of young ladies to work with. Eunice Al is not in here, but I do send her emails periodically saying thank you for raising such godly, competent young women. It is just a treat to work with both of them. Kristen and I had made contact with Kristen and said, hey, I'm going to be doing this workshop. Are you interested? She's like, oh yeah, I'm all in. And we spent a little bit of time talking. And she created a Google Doc. Actually, she's like, so did you start a Google Doc yet? Or do you want me to make one? I'm like, why don't you make one? And boom, there it was. So that's very much how Rebecca is. They're so administratively gifted, but not only are they administratively gifted, but they're gifted in many other ways. So I
Can they come to my house? I have some administration.
Yeah. I love working with all of them, but it is something about working with the Al girls that's exceptionally inspiring to me. So I'm grateful for that.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. She got in, what, 4 this morning?
Yeah.
And here she is, all bright-eyed, ready for her summertime road trip with her. I should have kept my sunglasses.
I'll get them for you.
Although my big one's detailed.
Did she start at 4 or arrive at 4?
You arrived at 4
We
a.m.,
arrived at 4
right?
a.m. this morning.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, what time did you leave New Jersey?
I left right after work, which was 5. Took a train, yeah, then I drove. It's all good. See, planning. Handy.
So the objective of our workshop this time block would be to increase your knowledge of the ICC leadership opportunities. Specifically, we're talking about some summer opportunities such as prep, and also to examine how ICC equips leaders for future opportunities. And this is perfect that we have the tree here, this living tree, because it's going to give us a great visual for how Kristen and I are kind of stepping through some of our road trip and our planning. Also to expand our understanding and knowledge of the importance of planning. I know there are a few of you in the room that have done some planning with your student leaders, and when I say planning, that's what I'm referring to, planning with your student leaders, that they have their journey mapped out. So has anyone done that with their student leaders? Raise your hand high if you've done that. Okay, great. You just did it, right?
Right, but I haven't actually met with them and said, okay, this is what you're doing.
Okay, but you've got a map in place, right?
I do.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Peg's done it. Great.
Some, not all of them.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Well, you
Okay.
have to do it more than once.
Great.
Every year you have to do it again.
I would strongly recommend that, and I say that, and I have some student leaders in my own chapter. It's like the plumber that has the leaky pipes and the electrician that has the faulty lights. That would be me in some cases. So I have done that with some of my student leaders, but I will be honest, there are times that it's hard for me to make that happen with all of them. So I appreciate it when you guys take the opportunity to do that.
Do you do it individually, collectively?
I think people choose to do it differently, and we can talk a little bit about that if our workshop affords the opportunity to do that. But each chapter, I think, can handle that differently. Some have actually student leader meetings, and they'll do it during that time period. We had the BLT, the basic leader training yesterday, and the day before Jill taught it, and then I taught it yesterday, and that really was emphasizing a time with your student leaders to equip and prepare them specifically over the summer. So that fits very well with this workshop, that we're saying what can we do over the summertime to prepare them. So that would be a perfect opportunity to do some road mapping with your students as well. So if you have that leader training time during the summer, it would be good for you. It would also be good for the chapter sponsor to say what events are we going to be participating in and how. So as you have area events, I know the Mid-Atlantic area, we purpose to have a face-to-face meeting over the summer to schedule out our year. So what events are we hosting? We know we have our fall conference scheduled already because Peg's facility, where she was a teacher, their school, Lighthouse Christian Academy, has offered us their facility again. We're actually partnering with them with some curriculum and becoming co-curricular with Lighthouse Christian Academy. So it opened up a great opportunity for us to have a beautiful facility that they love working with us. and that's already in place, but then we need to talk through tournaments, and we need to talk through Ignite, and so we do planning too. It's not only for our students, but as chapter sponsors, we have a time where we get face-to-face. Fortunately, in the Mid-Atlantic area, as in probably with the majority of the Northeast, you're geographically, it's conducive to do that, and that's not the case everywhere, I understand.
Yeah, do we have a date for that one, face-to-face, America?
We
heard a
do,
rumor.
and I don't remember what it is.
Okay.
So Kathy Bolden,
Is the one to ask, okay.
Chi, your husband was making his office available for it. Okay, well, we don't need to get into that, but
Sorry.
yeah, we do, or we'll look into it and figure that out, but I don't know off the top of my head. So with that, we're going to get started. I'm going to let Kristen share a little bit about specifically what PrEP is and where that is on our living tree. And Kristen has had a lot of touch points with PrEP, and again, I'll let you share what that has looked like and what your journey has looked like through the planning process.
Okay. So I interned in 2009, and that was a long time ago. Ever since that year I interned, I came back and served on summer staff at the training center for ICC for the entirety of the summer. This is my first summer in 4 years that I'm not at the training center.
Okay, Cole, why don't you tell a lot of people that are here, does anyone know what summer staff does and how it works? Okay, so
Okay.
there you go.
Sure. Okay, well, let's start even before summer staff. Let's start with interning. I was involved with ICC for 2 years before I interned. I was involved in my chapter for 1 year. This was back in the day before you had to do YSG to become an intern. I had done some of the other leadership programs, and something that I knew as I was applying to intern, as I'm sure all of your students know with applying to any sort of leadership opportunity, is that you're going to have to fulfill all the requirements beforehand, and there are deadlines. And it's harder to meet those deadlines when you have a short amount of time. Some of your students may have gone through BPS, maybe they've been here since they're 6, so by the time they want to be a student leader, they've had plenty of years of practice, plenty of time to work on their books and leadership. For me, it was definitely a push, so it required me to do a lot of planning out for how I was going to get everything done in time to meet the requirements for applying to intern. It did work out, and then I interned in 2009. And then after that, I came back and served on summer staff. And basically what this is, for about 3 months over the summer, the summer staffers, so people who have interned in the past or who have been with the program for a couple years in the past, will come back and help mentor the new intern team. And then assisting the intern team will be the prep team. So they're the people who cook and clean. So basically, the Moon's house over the summer is the ICC training center. So you think it's a house when you first arrive there. What you realize is that it's a big training center, and there's 3 groups of people. There's a summer staff, like what I was, so you're basically in charge of the house, making sure that all the interns are preparing the things they need to do, making sure all the prep team is getting things cooked. And then there's the interns, and they're the ones who are actually preparing for the fall tour. And then there's the prep team who will mow the lawn, get stuff ready for grilling, cook breakfast, wash the dishes again.
Again, I like to do the laundry.
Yes, do the laundry. That brought my sister to tears. I feel so bad about that. So there's a lot that goes on over the summer, and I've had the privilege of being there for 3 years. This past year, so 2012, so I thought I was going to serve as administrative support for the summer because that's what I've always done. I've almost always helped to prepare the intern team, help them get ready for their classes, help them do team building. Last summer, Mrs. Moon tells me, Kristen, so what do you think about leading the prep team? This is 2 days before the prep team arrives, mind you. And so I said, okay, Mrs. Moon. So I didn't really know what I was doing. All I knew is that they were going to be a group of 7 kids showing up at the training center, and they were going to do all the cooking, the cleaning, the lawn work, making sure we had supplies, everything like that, and I was going to administrate it. So it was exciting, and yeah, I guess it's been really good to see all those student leaders who came from their local chapters and how willing and ready they were to serve on the prep team. So that's kind of what we wanted to talk to you about in this workshop today, what prep looks like and what your students can gain from it and why it's something worth planning for. So if you look on Century, prep is here. It is in the purple level. Honestly, I don't know all the ins and outs of the tree. Mrs. Freeman knows all of it. Why is G2?
need to have completed phase 2.
So you have to complete the orange phase to go up to the purple phase.
It's good, Vanna.
I'm a fast learner.
You are.
So-
Like a little Vanna White.
You finish phase 1, you finish your phase 2, and then you can apply to prep. Like most leadership opportunities, it is an application process, so you'll write some things out about maybe some skills you have, what you want to learn to prep, some skills you can offer, and you just come with open arms, ready to serve whatever you get. If time allows, I'll definitely like to talk to you all about some things you do on prep, ways I saw my students, oh my, my students grow. But that's basically what the prep team does. They're there as support to the interns. The interns can focus on preparing for tour, and the prep team can focus on serving them. It's a lot of fun because you get usually about 2 weeks to spend in one place with the same team. I'm guessing a lot of you have students who are RSAing. How many of you are RSA parents? A bunch of you.
Nice.
Okay, so RSA parents know that their RSAs are going to spend 1 week with this giant team of people, and supposedly they're going to learn service and leadership and teamwork all in 1 week. That's great. They probably will learn that, but prep to me is another great opportunity for them to continue to learn that because it's all focused not just on having them serve, but they have someone dedicated to them, which I was last year, in helping make sure they learn those lessons, helping conflict get resolved. On the RSA team, if you don't get along with someone, I'm not saying this happens, but like, presumably it could happen if you don't like them and you don't talk to them, you can see them, never see them again after a week. If you have a conflict with somebody at prep, you're going to see them tomorrow and the day after and the day after and the day after. So it teaches you a lot of skills you're not going to learn from the limited portion of time you have as an RSA, and it teaches you a lot of teamwork.
And you're there for 2 weeks, you said?
It depends on the team. Do you know how long the
Yep.
teams this year are?
There's 2 teams of 15 days and 1 team of 17 days. And of course, that changes from summer to summer depending
Yeah.
on where things fall. But we'll start after the first team comes in June 27th, and they'll stay through July 11th or 12th or something like that. And then the second team comes in. We do purpose an overlap in those days.
Oh,
So
the overlap's so helpful.
yeah, and I'll let you talk about that. But the team 1 finishes July 11, team 2 comes in July 9. So there's a minimum of 2 days that we have an overlap for what purpose?
A lot of what the overlap does is help the new team get oriented to what they're doing. The old team is really good. They can say, well, you know that knife that you want to use, you can't put that one in the dishwasher, and things like, oh, well, it's okay if you do this and that, but make sure you don't do that, and help them feel comfortable with the environment. It also sets a standard of the kind of character and competence that we're expecting from the team, because you see the team before you was one who was always there on time, didn't skip out in washing the dishes, didn't skip out in doing this and that. You're saying, okay, well, this is what I've got to need. So it helps orient the second team. In my mind, I was like thinking of it as dog training. I trained dogs when I was in high school. But you know how they always say when you have like the older dog, you should get the new puppy while you still have your older dog because the older dog trained your puppy? Same exact principle.
So you've got the older
Don't
dogs.
tell them that.
Yeah, you've got the older dogs teaching the puppy prep team.
My mom used to say the dogs are better behaved than their kids all the time. I had to compete with the dog.
Yes, Chi.
It looks like on the tree, you apprentice and then you go up and go down, the next level is to an RSA and then prep,
Yep.
right?
Well, I don't know that there's,
You don't
I mean,
have
we
to
would
do
have to
that.
look at them to see if there's a specific order with eligibility, and I will be very honest, I do not have memorized every
Okay,
one of
no,
those
just
for
wondering.
eligibility because it is ever changing. I'm going to tell you why it's ever changing, which keeps me very busy, and it also keeps Kristen very busy because she does a lot of the updates on the website for me. I have gotten I can make
I've got the
text
thing right in front of me.
Text updates, but I don't necessarily do photos and things, which Kristen is very instrumental in helping me with. But the Act 2 RSA Prep Chapter Mentor, they need to have at least finished YSG Phase 2. And then, of course, the Orange Fruit Student Leader, Student Evaluator, Apprentice need to have completed YSG Phase 1. And then some of those are dependent upon another position as far as eligibility. And the reason that it's changing is because we're continuing to develop and improve our leadership opportunity. If you want to sit down, you may.
Okay.
You like standing next to
Yes,
the
I
tree.
do. I like it.
To improve our leadership opportunities to try and make them work. We have students such as Kristen who are what we would call a fast tracker, or some students that come in very late in the game, and we don't want to exclude them. We want them to have a part of this opportunity, and we really do try and cater to that student the best that we possibly can, which is why we choose to roadmap. So we'll try and have a conversation, or encourage you as a sponsor to have a conversation. And if you don't know the answers because you can't make the exception, we don't like to make exceptions commonly, because it creates some hiccups periodically, and it's a lot to manage. However, we recognize the importance of this training and believe in it enough that we're willing to say, hey, what can we do to make it work for this 17-year-old that's coming in? Because we know now we have the alumni track, and we have certifications after Guild, and we have all of these additional opportunities in 2013 that we didn't have in 2010 or even 2012. We didn't have this alumni track that we now offer until we first unveiled it at Ignite of this year. So that's brand spanking new. All of that to say, it's a constant adjustment with our eligibility and what they're learning. Specifically, what comes to mind for me right now would be the fact that we are not having a Flood the Five in the spring.
Right.
We are now having only a fall event that would give students the opportunity to serve as a student instructor. That will have an impact on your students, and that's what you need to be thinking with Kristen's map. We need to be pulling that map out and saying, okay, wait a minute, let me back up and say, he had it forecasted, or we had it forecasted for spring of 2014, but he's not going to have that opportunity, so how can we push it back? And I've had several one-on-one conversations with some sponsors about students specifically that are older in their area that are going to have trouble making that happen. And I want you to hear me, we're not looking to penalize or exclude anyone. We want to make it doable for everyone, but we can't. It takes a lot of thinking and a lot of planning, much more than we could ever discuss in this room right here. But I'm just wanting to make a point that because we're not having that opportunity, we need to back our thoughts up, those of you that have already roadmapped, and say, okay, how can I adjust for this?
They may have to go to more than one tour.
They may have to go to more
'Cause I had a
than one
student do
stop.
that last fall because he wanted to be able to print RSA. at
Right.
night.
I did that the year I applied to intern too.
Right.
I think I went to 2 or 3 classes.
Now, they've changed some of this, because I see the NLSLC is YSG 2 phase? Isn't
No,
it
it's
now?
Guild.
It's Guild now, yeah.
Is it say phase 2 on there?
That's the student ladder she's looking
Oh, we need to fix that. Both just us collectively are just like,
Oh.
Guess we
We
have our
should
homework.
probably take that down, actually.
Today.
Well, you could
Maybe
just
we
put
can
a
take a
note.
picture of this and put it in its place.
You
What do you
could-
think of
Otherwise
that?
it takes
You
pictures.
you could put a note on it that some of these things have changed.
Well, it does have a note on the bottom, at
Oh,
least I
okay.
thought I put one on the bottom that said, please check each specific role for the latest eligibility.
Yes, it
But it
does.
is misleading.
It says that.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
That's fine.
at. The best place to look is on your sidebar where
Yes.
the different roles are.
Yes.
I did make a Google Doc because I needed it visually, so I'll try to share that, just a grid.
Oh, that would be great.
And keep that updated.
That would be very
And I
helpful.
pulled it right off the eligibility rules.
Oh, good. They're gonna be adjusted, because on my to-do list, I have, there need to be some things added, because we're adding the online communication certification as an eligibility for the NSLC, which I'm sure you heard about, and we need to figure out when we're gonna offer that. I don't know, I am so impressed with the students that have gone through that, and I've seen their work, I've seen their video blogs, not all of them, but some of them.
I critiqued their tweets.
Yeah, I've seen their tweets, I've seen their work, and I'm telling you, it is a phenomenal piece of training that Mrs. Eunice has put together for our students, and it's incredible, which is why we see it so important, because we are socially active. We're social
Yeah.
media is it. I mean, when you think about it, I'm back to more of a paper, I'm not quite there, but I recognize that those we're serving are there, and we need to train and equip them in that, and there's no better way than to do it in this environment, where they can have someone that's a few years older, tweaking and adjusting and course correcting some of their information. So, yes.
Is that curriculum set up that they can do it along with their YSG
They actually, that's a great question. So is it set up to go alongside the YSG? Certifications actually happen after guild induction.
So they have to be inducted.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
No, not
Can't you
before they
start?
can start.
You can start in phase 3, right?
You have to do it all in one.
Yeah, you can start in
start
phase
if
3.
you're in
Phase 3.
You
Yeah.
can't finish until
You can't be
completed.
recognized.
That's what I was
You
asking.
cannot
You
be
have a
recognized
student-
as completing it until guild induction.
Yep.
If you have a student that is in phase 3 currently working on it.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your face. Yes.
I'm sorry.
They need to complete their guild induction prior to completing their OCC, correct?
completing
Yes.
And wasn't there like a 12-month timeframe too somehow connected with this, that someone was?
I'm not
Something
familiar
about
with
one of
that,
the
but that's
students,
not
I think.
saying it isn't. That's a
Yeah.
Eunice
I think
question.
one of the students told me that when I was asking.
I
That
would-
was in the program.
I would run that by Eunice.
Yeah.
Yeah, just ask my mom.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rabbit trail what she was saying about prep, so.
No, that's okay. Yes, Chief?
Can we have some time, sometime during the conference, when we can romantic plan and she,
We can talk about that, and if you wanted to use, if we have time in our workshop, I'm sure Kristen would be thrilled to help with that too. We can talk about what that may look like with a few examples.
No,
Of
no,
what that could
because
look like.
she, she took a break, but first of all, she didn't have the other end of it, too young.
Right.
To take advantage
Yes.
of it.
Too young.
But she's a guild inductee for 2 years now, coming this winter, but she's apprenticing. So that's why I was asking the step, you know what I mean, the time.
Right, and that's a great point, because Kristen's younger sister Colleen fell into the same category that
Yeah.
your daughter did, with the fact that they were a guild inductee at 13, which you
And
can
couldn't
be.
do anything else with it.
And there was nothing else to do, and we're saying, hey, what can we do to be needs responsive, because we don't want that gap, we don't want we don't want to slow the momentum down.
Yeah,
So
Melody's gonna be the same way.
what we did was we adjusted the apprentice eligibility and said there's an exception. If you're a guild inductee, you may apply regardless of your age, because we recognize that you're developing and working on the character and the competence that we need for that specific leader role. So that's why the leader ladder or the leader opportunities or the website are constantly changing, because we are an organism and we're constantly moving and making things more manageable and doable, although it may not always seem manageable, and I understand it can get frustrating when you're looking at a leader ladder and it's a little out of date, but I can assure you that probably 98% of those situations we are aware of and just don't have the manpower to get to them quickly enough.
It's okay.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Can you speak to the other end of the time spectrum? Because if there are requirements that must be fulfilled, and for instance, the online certification only offered at a certain time of year for a certain period of time, and your student is already working at a camp out of town or something,
Yeah.
and they miss it, and it's not for another year.
Right.
Well, the time is moving on for that person to be a high school graduate or whatever. So you run into similar issues of, there are a lot of positions to be filled, and maybe it's not a concern from the organizational standpoint of we, want and need and, the leaders. But, and then two, their academics and their other leadership opportunities. If you're training to be a leader, you're probably out being that leader somewhere else other than just ICC.
Right.
So, help us with that, because you've walked that path, and now you know what these new requirements are going to add to that length of time.
We have had conversation about that, and we understand that when we add an eligibility, it adds a new dimension to what your planning looks like, because of how often or how frequently that specific event or training is offered. So we are very aware of that, and Eunice and I have had conversation about that, and the national leadership team meets for a few days over the summer that we roadmap. We schedule and we talk about what
NLT
we're
week.
doing. What's that?
NLT week, that's what the prep
Yeah,
team calls it.
NLT week. And that is on the schedule. That is a top priority as to how often. If we can't make it happen, which I don't think that's the case, but I'm just saying this is how we look at things. If we can't make it doable for a majority of the kids, I know there are going to be situations that it just doesn't work for some.
Sure.
But we do try and make it doable. And if it's not doable, we can't make it as an eligibility. It's just, that's not serving anyone
Right.
well. So it's going to be something we recognize the importance of, specifically the OCC and a lot of the other certifications, even the CTAC, because that helps develop our area teams. That's hugely instrumental in developing our area teams. So we're going to look to offer that on a continual basis.
Right.
That it's something that's going to circle and cycle through, that it's not going to be, oh, I've got to wait a whole year, because it won't work.
And so, may I clarify another thing on, student instructor, for instance, I see that it's in gold, and that requires guild now, where it didn't before.
That's correct.
And secondly, then student instructor availability has become limited to fall only versus fall and spring.
Right.
Well,
So
actually, it
it's
was only
never-
spring before.
It was only spring
Yep.
before, but now it's in the fall.
Yes. So
Okay.
it's been
Got
backed
it.
up,
Backed up.
which does have an impact because a lot of chapters break during the summer. So if you're trying to complete your phase 3
For this year.
for
yes,
this year,
need
you
to
don't
make that
have
sooner
the
or later.
fall to work on it,
Right, you
because,
have to do
well,
it
you
this
might have a
summer.
little bit of it, but
Yeah. you
So
really
that
gotta
is
do
a
both
bit
of
of a-
them summer.
Yeah, so
That's
that's
what you're
something we
needing to
would
think.
need to address with people right now. If
Yes.
they were hoping to student instruct and thought they
Yep,
could do it later.
that's exactly
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Karen?
That was what I was gonna highlight, and it especially impacts, I think, apprentice, because that's the entry level to everything, and it's only in the fall that you can apprentice or here, correct?
Yes.
Not
You
at
can't
Ignite.
at Ignite.
So it's
And
gonna
the
take a
same-
little different planning now, and the other thing is the schedule is already on the website for the fall.
Yes, it is.
So in the midst of everything, Mary got that up. So that's key, you've got to share that with your members now, so they can, there's
Yeah.
one of them's a PSAT date. So it
Right.
just takes some planning, but we've got
Oh,
what you need.
And then like is RSA a requirement or apt to a requirement after you're apprentice? Do you have to do the purple level?
You're
If
gonna have to
you
do something on the purple
You have to do
level.
just one?
Well, it depends on where you're going, and that's where
Because
you're
like
gonna have to
RSA
think
is
it
only
through.
national.
Actually,
national, right?
SI is here on the website on the description says YSG Phase 2 completed,
What's the little asterisk underneath it say?
beginning 2014, which is not this year.
Right?
So that was my question, so you didn't,
No,
you
we
said
didn't back
14
it up.
all along, I thought you just said you back, okay, so that's still, phase 2 will still remain in effect through the end of the
This
2000,
year,
so you're
that is
gonna
correct.
Accept
So
SI.
That is
so
correct.
if you're roadmap to this year, you're still okay.
All right, so let me restate that
Yeah.
clearly.
Yeah.
Guild as a requirement for SI was for spring of 2014. As I roadmapped that last year, based upon the upcoming year, we now do not have a 2014 spring opportunity. It will still be required for 2014,
Fall,
but it will be the fall.
okay,
Fall
gotcha.
of 2014,
right.
not this fall.
Correct.
Okay.
So the eligibility for 2013 remains. It's 2014 that it
Gotcha.
will change, but that won't be until fall. Is that
Thank
making
So
sense
people
to
who
any,
have
everyone?
qualified for student instructor
Thank you.
for the fall, you will have student instructors based on the old requirements because you need student
Yes,
instructors. And that
yes.
opportunity's there on the
This
old
fall.
requirements. This fall.
Yes.
Got it.
2013,
Okay.
yes.
What are the requirements for this fall?
For student
It
instructors.
says Y,
Instructor.
Yeah, there, Go ahead.
they're on the, I can show you where they are on the website.
I know where they are, I was just
Yes.
wondering.
YSG Phase 2 completed, having participated as RSA or prep team in the last 12 months, 16 years of age, by the date of the event, chapter member in good standing.
and a recommendation from your
Yeah.
sponsor in
All of
AC.
them, so they have to be RSA.
Okay, one more question about that, and I'd like to go back to prep. Go ahead.
Can you give us the information touch point to find out about the certifications? Is there a special site, or is that through the ICC.org? Do you know how, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's Eunice at this point, and there's not a whole lot on the website about those, because I looked the other night when I was planning, and I'm like, where do I find this? Yeah, there's nothing at this point.
Well,
But
actually, the notes from her,
Are on the wiki?
on the wiki.
Okay, so you could get, probably the most current,
Okay.
accurate information you will get is whatever Eunice put out on the wiki.
Yeah, and then she
Because
did mention that,
she's
yeah,
it.
she did mention that she will. do
Update
that
the
in
website.
Yeah, I
July for, you know.
During
to
our
send
planning.
it, Yeah. the
Mhm.
Yeah, I
planning,
figured
yeah.
eventually she'll have
Yeah.
something,
Yep.
but was there something in existence right now?
Yep.
No, there's
Okay.
nothing going on.
All right, I'll look at her notes.
Karen?
The reasoning for that, I've heard, is you have to go through your AC.
Yeah, it requires
First
AC
contact.
partnership.
Yes.
First contact should be your AC and they'll get you the links. That's what I've heard.
Oh, right, because you're one of those ACs.
Because we're supposed to know who's going through it and we don't know unless we're the gate.
But for planning, right,
Yeah, that Kathy's question was about dates and planning and,
the very
right.
purpose, right, is we're trying to kind of, so
Yep.
we kind of, I mean, not that we're assuming we're gonna get in or invited or whatever, but just for
Yes.
planning purposes, for, you know, where is the target? so that we can
Absolutely,
try to get
and,
it.
and I want to just clarify what Karen said, it's not meaning that you should know any of those things unless you ask your AC. It does need the AC recommendation, and you could ask your AC when things are going on, but the wiki apparently will have whatever Eunice has as the latest. And I know when we have dates, because it's an eligibility, it's gonna need to be posted
Right,
somewhere.
you're gonna need to know those dates
Yep.
way in advance,
Yep.
if possible.
Yes, yes. So back to prep, there are some things that I want to cover about the training, and Kristen can probably target that. It's much more extensive than it sounds. I mean, she talked about conflict resolution. I know when I went to the first time I went to the training center was for a national leader team meeting, and it was sweet. It was just a sweet time to see everybody busy. I wish I had a picture of even their schedules. What do
I have
they
them
look
all.
like? Yeah, what do they look like? Tell us.
Okay, sure. Well, I guess just to start off, I think a lot of times when you hear about prep, you hear, oh, you're doing all these things. But one thing that I guess I would like for you all to take away from this is prep is not just the things that you're doing, but it's the training that's going along with it. It's not just a matter of telling people to sweep the floor, it's how you're being taught to do that and the fact that you're getting focused time to learn about the perspective and the reasoning behind why you would do any of that. So basic schedule would look like breakfast cleanup, morning meeting. We of course we had like fun team sound offs and traditions we did in the morning. Then we have guys mowing the lawn, girls prepping lunch. I mean, you could switch up on the teams. I'm not going to assign you to. If you want to work outside, you're a girl, that's fine. But anyway, so we did like chores like that, and then we usually have lunch. Then we have what we called siesta, which I'm guessing we'll keep this year, which is basically quiet time. So the whole house shuts down. Everyone has to go spend some time alone quietly. And I guess to some of the extroverts it might sound oppressive. It's only half an hour, you'll be fine. And I think for a lot of people,
Most of them nap.
a lot of people nap. It's just what you need to like break down the day and kind of get your own space. There's not a ton of like personal space. Sometimes you need your own psychological space. So that's really good. And then in the afternoon, sometimes we'll have some projects to work on. We've done lots of team building activities, fun and games outside. Oh, shopping trips. Can't forget about the giant shopping trips you go to. I'm sure Paige has told you everything about them. And then we'll do some record keeping. So this past year's summer prep team helped to pilot the service certification,
Right.
which I'm sure you all heard about at Ignite if you were there. I helped to write the service certification, and I had all of the prep team just write down what they did during the day, write down what they were learning, how much time they spent on things, and then we would have discussions and say, okay, what are we learning about this? How could we do this better? So it was constant feedback, so it's not just doing the thing, but how did you do it? Was this the best way to do it? Do we need to switch up how many people we have on this? Do we need to change the times? We have dinner, and then usually in the evening we do fun stuff, like watch movies, play games, or prep breakfast for the next day, which is fun in my mind. So that's kind of like your average day. I think as an RSA, we try to make time for not just the doing things, but also for the leadership training. But at prep, it's so nice because you're all in one place for a longer time. You have a couple of hours to focus on a big discussion, listen to a lecture about leadership, and discuss that, or focus on how we're going to beta test the service certification.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's great.
That's
Those
kind
were
of what
great
prep was
opportunities.
like for me.
And there's some, depending on your team, there are some special events, like you'll have the commissioning for the interns where the families come in and they prepare these amazing, the amazing atmosphere, and as well as the food, and it's just beautifully done. And then we have the time where the NLT comes in, which is really sweet because they'll prepare a special meal for us, and then we have a time where we have the summer staff come in with a few of our meetings, and we just sit around. I mean, we fill a room and we hear from them, and they hear from us, and it's intergenerational, and we're working with young leaders, hearing what's happening and doing activities or having just good conversation about leadership and about God's plan and how we can make the organization as a whole better to fulfill the mission. And that's really, we heard back from some of the staff that was a really meaningful time, because they felt like we were giving them time, whereas we felt it was meaningful because they were giving us time as well. But sometimes we get so busy in the what we have to do that, and they have to do, that we were missing the, can we do something together that's going to benefit all of us, and that we found that was very special. So there are some special events and special things that happened during that time. I did ask Paige to come in and share her testimony about prep and the training that she received, because Paige, well, you tell what your prep time has looked like for us.
Okay. I'm Paige Miller. I'm from the Anchor chapter in Hudsonville, Michigan, and I served on the 2011 prep team, and then I was also a 2012 co-prep team leader. So I did it 2 years in a row, and both times I didn't realize what I'd learned until I got back. They were both just these life lessons that all of a sudden they clicked in my mind. Before I went to prep the first time, I was an okay speaker. If you gave me a script, I could memorize it and deliver it. And if I got into a limited prep round, I could do okay, and I would be fine. But I couldn't just stand up and talk. I was not able to express myself on the fly. After prep, when I worked in these stressful situations where I wasn't necessarily speaking, I actually never gave a speech the entire 3 weeks of prep, but I came back because I had been in those stressful situations where I had to learn to express myself graciously because I'm working with my friends, but I also have to learn to get things done and convey what I'm trying to say in a stressful situation. All of a sudden, I got back to chapter, and I could do it just fine. I could stand up and express myself without even thinking about it. So that was, after the first year at prep, that was the biggest difference I saw. And then the same thing happened after I was a prep team leader. I was working in that same stressful situation scenario, and I learned so much about addressing conflict as a follower and as a leader. So not too long after I got back, I started looking for a job. And my first job interview, they started asking me questions about conflict. How do you respond to conflict? What do you do if you disagree with your manager? What if you do if a customer is confronting you and they're really angry? And I never thought about this before, but suddenly I knew that I knew what to do. And I could express this to the people interviewing me. And so those were just the two very concrete ways that I saw prep affect me. So
That's excellent, Paige.
Thank you, Paige.
So Paige said something that we didn't talk about, and you mentioned team leader.
Yeah.
So there are three options. There's prep team 1, 2, and 3. Students can apply for one or all 3. And then there's the role of prep team leader, which
Lifesavers.
is
Lifesavers, I tell you.
different from summer staff. Okay.
So basically, our job was to kind of be the point person for the prep team. So we were in charge of building the menus and writing the schedule so that all the prep team members knew what they were doing every day. They could look at the schedule on the wall and say, okay, I'm helping clean up breakfast, and I'm helping make lunch, which is this. So we coordinated all of that.
So that's the
It sounds
summer
like
staff.
way more than that. I think you're missing something.
That's an eye on.
The guys and girls are on 2 separate floors.
Yes.
The girls are housed together in the same area, and the prep team leader has a huge responsibility. They come in a little earlier, they stay a little later than than the first and last team.
So
They
the leader
are,
stays the whole 3 weeks.
yes, they are the glue
Seven
that,
by the time I get
it was how many?
7 weeks.
7 weeks, okay. And that, they're the glue, really, I think, that holds them together. They've got the pulse on any possible problems or conflict. I mean, they're living together. Trust me, they know when there's a problem stirring. So that's a big responsibility. And then prep team leader reports to whom?
We called her the prep auntie, which was Kristen. So So it's definitely a chain of command, I guess.
Excellent.
I need clarification on summer staff. Is that the same thing as this leader?
As prep team, no, it is not.
Okay, so clarify
So-
that. I
Go ahead,
missed
Kristen.
that link completely.
That's okay. So summer staff, I would describe as the leader of leaders.
Okay.
That would be probably the best way I have to describe it. So their summer staff is a lot of the people who are running the training, administrating the whole summer program. The team leader for the prep team is like a point person for the entire prep team. So Paige, as one of the co-team leaders for the prep team, she watches over all the teams on prep. She makes sure that when Clark is supposed to come for breakfast to help set up breakfast, he comes. No, Clark was good. Clark was actually great at coming on time. But she makes sure that all that happens, and then if something happens like we're not allotting enough time for us to prepare lunch, we need to change the schedule, then she comes to me, and since I am part of the summer staff, I got the big picture of what's going on in the whole training center, so we can make her sector of the training center, the prep team, work.
Okay, and when just to clarify, because I'm thinking I didn't hear this and you might want to know. So Kristen, as summer staff, was overseeing the team leader for prep and providing guidance, as well as the interns. So that when she says the leader of leaders, she's meaning the leader of the prep team, as
leaders.
well as the intern team.
And intern team.
And then
Okay,
she
staff
works-
is also leading the intern team. Got
Yes.
it. Okay.
It's kind of like Moses in the Bible. The prep team members would talk to us, and if we needed to talk to Kristen, we would talk to Kristen, and if she needed to talk to Mrs. Moon or whatever summer staff, it was working its way up. So-
And both team leaders and summer staff stay the entire time, or?
Yes.
I want to clarify that too, okay.
Well, some summer staff has come partially.
It depends on the year. This year in particular, summer staff are in and out. It just depends on the year.
Yeah, but summer staff is actually a pretty flexible,
For
because we
obvious
recognize,
reasons.
yeah, for obvious reasons, exactly.
You're working.
Well, college and,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
I
Karen?
have a question for Paige. What about tacit knowledge?
Tacit
Can you
knowledge.
share what you told me about that?
Yeah, tacit knowledge, I don't know.
Say it again.
Tacit knowledge, not sure if you're familiar with that term. Basically, it's been described to us as things that are not taught to you, you just pick up on them. And I think that's the biggest part of prep. I didn't, like I said, I didn't give any speeches, but I came back knowing how to do a better job. And the same thing happened this year. My co-prep team leader and I sat through many intern rehearsals, maybe not watching, but just listening from the kitchen. And we came back to conferences, and interns said, wow, you learned so much from those rehearsals. You're doing all these things that it took us weeks to learn during rehearsals, and we never rehearsed.
That happens at the homeschool tables.
Yeah. So it's that you pick it up from your peers, either hearing somebody tell them, or just watching someone do something and going, whoa, they did that really well. How can I do that?
Right.
So,
Yes.
That's a great question.
Just pick up on stuff. Yeah.
Our time is up. Thank you, Paige. We will be heading to lunch until 1. And I have noted that it's at Robertson 103.